here inside the equity menu, the capital market activity, mergers and acquisitions. Looking at mergers and acquisitions will tell you what a company's worth. So for example, you see up at the top, Selco partnership Verizon Communications. That was the deal I was talking about earlier, Vodafone for Verizon. And interestingly, if you look at that, I don't know how much detail it gives us, I've forgotten. It tells you how much they paid essentially for the equity value of the stake. Very difficult to actually value this because they were buying a portion of the business as opposed to a whole equity. So maybe not the best example. Let's take Sprint and SoftBank. Okay, here we go. So here, we actually show you how much they paid for the different, for the business. So you've got all of the details of the deal there. The key things for us to look at are here in the bottom right hand corner. So the transaction value was just under $40 billion when SoftBank bought Sprint. The equity value was $23 billion, so they paid a premium of 43%, which is pretty high. Okay? So you might want to consider that as being for goodwill or whatever it might be. Now, this has a multiple, because we know what the value of the transaction is, and we know how much the company was generating in sales or EBITDA, we can say that here, TV, transaction value to revenue is 1.3 times. If you're buying a phone company, you might want to pay 1.3 times the amount of sales that they have. That's a fair value based on this deal alone. Similarly, if you're basing it on earnings, 10 times is a good deal. Okay? If we compare this to the peers, you can see that the transaction value to sales was much lower, but the transaction value to EBITDA was about the same. Okay.
Again, the same question. Can we get access to the history of that deal through API somehow?
This not so much. There's a way of getting some of the data, but it's only very descriptive data, and it's quite difficult to relate this information to a particular company. Often what's easier is the way that I would go about modeling these things is, because you probably have generally how people use this in the market is you have like event arbitrage, you have special situation. So special situation funds try and take advantage of M&A activity, and they'll say, okay, I know that was the other big deal, TNT UPS merger like a year and a half ago. There were lots of people analysing it at that time, but it's because it was a special case, you're only going to download it once. It's not a sort of framework that you would use on a repeat basis.
But in academia, people quite often are analyzing M&As and reading lots of papers on that topic. That's why I'm asking that question, because somebody in this auditorium that could be interesting.
So I'll give you an answer that I think would be useful, because I have met someone at a different university who's doing something along these lines in the past. One thing that you can do is you can come into the deal comps. Whilst you can't download this using a formula, you'll get all of your different important multiples here for relative deals, or relevant deals I should say. You can see we give you lots of columns going across, and you can output to Excel. Okay, so nice and easy, you output that to Excel, and away you go. That's the fastest way. The other one, which I'll show you very quickly, if you go into MA, you have a custom search here that you can apply lots of different criteria to. I think I've got some pre-saved. Let's use Swedish M&A because I know that one works. So this is Swedish M&A activity. We've got the whole deal list here as well as some pre-canned analytics. These can all be output to Excel as well.
And I can edit that columns. So
exactly. So you've got edit columns there. Sure. You've got all of the deal-specific data, and away you go. So this is usually, because you can search through the whole database this way, find the different things, and then download what you want. So things like that.
The last question, I'm sorry. What is the coverage? Do you cover all the deal activity in the world, or?
Okay, so we cover, we do cover all deal activity in the world. There's one caveat, and that's that there needs to be a press release for us to carry the deal. So there are some data services that will put rumored deals on there. So for example, again, the Vodafone Verizon deal, everybody was talking about it for like a week, but Bloomberg didn't have any information because there was no press release. There was just lots of speculation. And the idea is that we don't put it in until such point as the press release comes out. Okay. To show you, we have quite granular levels of detail. If I show you on MA, do a custom search. Let's see date range. So if I say announced year to date, and let's have a look just in Russia. Pick Russia there. We're just going to look at all deals that have taken place with a Russian target or acquirer in a year. And take a look at the results. You'll see we have 750 deals. And if we have a look at the deal list, it will include things like various different holdings, but I think we also have something amusing like a supermarket in, here we go, Metropolis Shopping Center, for example.
Metropolis is actually near here.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Это торговый центр Metropolis. Он управляется Morgan Stanley, на самом деле.
There it is.
So it's like 1 kilometer near this station.
Yeah. This was actually a much more relevant example than I imagined.
Sure. The most relevant possible in this situation.
It's almost as if I prepared. So, we have that deal, and we'll get all of the information that comes through. So you have the acquirers, you'll have transaction values, and again, whilst there's no transaction values and revenues and things like that, it will show you what the peer medians were, so you can try and work out what they may actually generate. But yeah, so that's a fairly short introduction to the transaction multiple approach. It's basically the same as relative value, just using different sources of data.
But can you show us how to filter by sector?
Sure. So if I start the process from the beginning, so you can see, MA Go is the place for all of the M&A. Custom search is the easiest way. If you've got one of these sectors here, you can click on them. But if you know I want to see all Russian telecommunications deals, for example, I come in and say custom search, and I look through my list, and I've got sector, industry, region, country right next to each other. Let's take sector, communications, for example, update, region, country, Russia, update. The last thing that I'll do is say date range. We'll just do year to date again. A bit of an interesting view.
Till now.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll look at the results. This will aggregate all of the data for all of those deals. So you can see that in the top left, there were 93 deals for $16 billion over the year, with an average premium of 6%. They were mainly telecom services, and they bought, and Russian companies bought companies from Egypt, from Sweden, US, Cyprus, and also a little bit of internal action as well. Now, this will have all of the different deals, so you can go in and analyze them in detail, as we did before. It will also have the buyers, and the one I want to show you so you can see who's the most active in this case, perhaps less useful I think. The one that is generally most popular in universities is time series, because it shows you whether there's a trend or if there's something going on that I should be looking at within a particular sector. So here, the time series shows you on a quarterly by quarterly basis how many deals were going on. So on average it's tended to pick up. If we put the average premium, you'll see that the premium's not really very useful in this case actually, but anyway. Don't worry about that. When statistics don't work, just get rid of them. But you can generally get an idea of activity here and see if there were periods of high or lower acquisitions. So I don't know if anyone has any questions at all about anything that we've seen so far.
About multiples. How can we be sure that they are calculated on the correct data, considering that in different countries there are different accounting standards? Or should we recalculate them?
That's a good question. So in forward multiples, EBITDA is usually fairly independent of accounting regulations. So it would generally be a really easy measure to look at internationally. That's why EV to EBITDA can be quite sensible. For earnings, so for EPS, you're right that there's different ways of doing it. So you have GAAP EPS and you have adjusted EPS.
Or Turkish standards maybe, how can we use Turkish companies then?
So Turkish companies have a lot of interesting things, like parent versus consolidated data, because you can look at just the top or the whole body of the company. And they have companies like Koç Holdings that seem to have, they make glass, have a bank, and sell cars and baby clothes. And I think I also ate lunch at a Koç Holdings restaurant once too, so it's kind of confusing. But you can choose how you want to analyze those based on parent or consolidated. If I were to take to Excel, for example, earnings and estimates will show you a couple of different things. You've got the two different types of EPS in there, GAAP, adjusted and GAAP. Adjusted is the general consensus across the